Having nothing to do, and having searched in vain among the notes of a piano for something to think on, I started off on a walk, trusting that I might scent a scandal on the breeze, or see God's toe peep through the sky. I passed a barber shop, a grocery store, a little Italian girl, a chicken coop, a roadhouse, an abandoned quarry, a field of nervous wheat. All this distance I had walked under God's blue sky, and still without a thought. But at last, after trudging on for hours, I came upon a thought. Miles upon miles I had walked for a thought, and at last I came upon an anthill. Idly curious, I stopped to look at the ants. They would go from one place to another and return to that first place again, and for no reason that I could see. Little ants with big burdens, big ants with bigger burdens, and ants with no burdens, the most frightened and panicky of them all. As I watched them, they seemed so human to me that my heart went out to them. Poor little devils, I said. But I grew tired of watching the swarming mass of them. I shall watch just one of them, I said to myself after much deliberation. And I picked out one frightened little ant to watch. He went running about unaware of my presence, not knowing that a great God was looking down on him, just as I did not know, but that a great God might be looking down on me. And with the toe of my shoe, I marked out a rut in his path, so that he had to climb over it. And then I began dropping little bits of sand on him, turning him over with a blade of grass. I am his destiny, I whispered. The conception thrilled me. As the poor little fellow rushed about in terror, I realized how massive his belief in life must be at this moment, how all-consuming his tragedy. My pity went out to him. But my blade of grass was too limber. I picked up a little stone to push him with. I drew a circle. May God strike me dead, little ant, if you get out of that circle. I took that oath, and the battle was on. It was long and uncertain, with victory now on his side and now on mine. The little ant, in a last despairing burst, made for the edge of the circle and crossed it. I was aroused. "I'll kill the ant," I shouted, and I brought the stone down on his body, his passions, his dreams. Destiny had spoken. For an instant, I was ashamed, for I had been unfair. He had beaten me under the terms I had made myself. I should have let him go free. I began watching other ants. They irritated me. They were so earnest, so faithful. 2 ants came up and touched. I wondered what that could mean. Do ants talk? Then I watched one of the ants which had touched the other to see if it touched still other ants, for it might be a herald of some sort. Perhaps ants do talk. One little ant was tugging and pulling at a dead bug. Slowly, carefully, I took my stone and drew it over his 2 legs, so that he was wounded grievously and began writhing in agony. My face was distorted with compassion. How my heart bled for him. I ran the stone across his other legs, and the motion was like a thrust in my own flesh. I was almost sick with pity for the poor little ant, and to end his suffering, I killed him. Wide regret came on me. Perhaps, I thought, perhaps he was a poet. Perhaps I have killed a genius. and I began stepping on the other ants, digging up the anthill, scattering destruction broadcast about me. When my work was finished, and only a few mangled ants remained alive, my sorrow for the poor little ants had grown until it weighed on me and crushed the vitality out of me. The poor little ants, I kept murmuring, the poor, miserable little ants. And I was bitter with the thought of how cruel the universe is and how needlessly things must suffer. I stood gazing at the death and slaughter about me, stupefied with calm horror at what I'd done. I prayed to God. "Oh, great God," I prayed, throwing back my head toward heaven and stretching out my hands like Christ on the cross. "Oh, great God!" But I didn't really throw back my head, for I still kept looking at the ants, and I did not address God. For at times I wonder if there be no God. I didn't do these things, I say, since I was too intently watching the ants. "O Almighty God," I thundered out in mighty prayer, throwing back my head toward heaven and stretching out my hands like Christ on the crucifix, "Thou who art ruler of us all, now I know why we suffer and ache, and I pity Thee